Hey, this is your favorite realtor, Bill Chobe from Remax Real Properties, the dedicated realtors team, the team lead. I'm here with a bunch of group of guys here. They're awesome with their profession. So family law as well as injury law. So we're going to be talking about that today, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves first. Go ahead.
My name is Thomas Sue. I'm a lawyer. I'm a family law and matrimonial litigation lawyer. I'm the owner and principal of TRS Law.
My name is V.T. Ramachandran of Ramachandran Law Professional Corporation. We're a team of lawyers who focus on real estate, family law, corporate law, civil litigation, and estates litigation. And we're based out of East Scarborough, and we work in the GTA.
And my name is Samuel Vino Nanasegram. I'm a associate lawyer with the team at Campese LLP, and we practice in personal injury.
All right, guys, so we're going to keep it very simple with this talk show today. So this is our third podcast for the dedicated realtors team. So thank you for joining us. So mostly we want to know with COVID being COVID, that's right, it's been pretty upsetting, a lot of ups and downs for families and stuff. So what are you guys generally seeing in family law at this point? What's going on at this point in the kind of scenario situations?
Well, first of all, we are seeing an uptick of domestic issues. Not only limited to domestic violence, but obviously people who are stuck in the house 7 hours a day,
Yeah.
7 days a week.
Yeah.
So that's not a very good formula, for good matrimonial relations. We are seeing an uptick in separation and divorces,
Okay.
and unfortunately, part of that uptick also consists of certain people who have unfortunately lost their jobs as well. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have a pressure cooker, or you guys are always in the house together with the financial pressures of not being able to sustain your day-to-day living. These factors sort of contribute to a situation where inevitably there would be some sort of breakdown.
I guess there's a lot of anxiety to it, right? That builds.
That's absolutely
true. When you in typically speaking, and I'm a married man, being in the house 24/7 with an individual that you probably never thought of, like you would be out there doing your 8 or 12-hour shift, come home, do your things, right? And when you're home, both working from home, it just gets. I think it just that you just don't have that environment where you go out there associated with your colleagues and what have you. That sort of environment you lose out. You kind of now stuck in the homes, right? So I think you're absolutely correct. But are there a lot of cases, like I know I recently dealt with 3 sort of separations and divorce as we actually speak. One of my good clients has gone through a crazy mad divorce. So are you guys seeing because of restrictions from court and what have you, are the cases taking longer?
Well, so far, what I've noticed is that cases aren't necessarily taking longer. Initially, when the courts stopped for the first about 3 to 4 months or so, matters were adjourned. They were adjourned indefinitely. But around June 2020, when the new court directives came out, things were gradually going back to court. Okay. Other things, urgent motions, for instance, had always been available since the lockdown, since the court shut down. And in fact, I would say that things have been more efficient since the shutdown, because now the courts are actually forced to use technology that's actually been existing for many, many years. They're forced to adapt to technology for filing motions, for getting judges to read these e-materials, and to schedule virtual motions and virtual appearances. That has actually made everything a little bit more efficient. And I would say that at least for urgent matters, the courts have not blockaded or stopped separations and divorce proceedings.
That's amazing. That's great to hear. I just know that a couple of the clients that I'm dealing with right now, and I don't think they had gone through that sort of long, prolonging process. It wasn't backlogged a lot too for them. It was just a matter of agreeing on certain terms, and anytime you go through separation or divorce, it's not easy, that's right. So from the both sides. Vitu, from your point of view, how are things coming along?
We've had our share of difficulties with what's happening in the family law context, especially while the urgent matters are going. When it comes to children, custody and access issues have been a nightmare. And it's going to become a nightmare as of Monday again. So what ends up happening is we had a lot of custody cases where the children were in supervised access centers, for example. And that usually results from domestic violence allegations against one partner or a pattern of criminal history with one partner. So if that partner wants to see the children, they'll be in the supervised settings set out by the core private centers. But with COVID, they shut them all down. They really didn't have a plan on how to open it, and by the time they opened it, it was 4, 5, 6 months in.
Yeah.
I've had clients who haven't seen their usually fathers predominantly haven't seen their children in 4 or 5 months. And even when they do come back, you have about 10 minutes on a video call. And that's at a supervised center. And in the first sense of conflict, we just had one. First video call since March. 10 minutes in, the kids were going at the father, and the supervised center just cut it off and said, "We're just canceling this indefinitely. Go to court." Now, this father hasn't seen his kids, I think, since early March. And now he's probably not going to see his kids until January, because now we have to get another court order. Yes, we can bring it urgently, but now with respect, especially Ontario Court of Justice, where all this access and children's matter happens, they're so backlogged. We're not getting dates until January, February, March of next year. So we have a huge impact on that component of it with respect to families, and domestic violence. Domestic violence is become such a negative side effect of COVID. There's been a lot of allegations that are just so stuck in there, and it's just it's a pressure cooker. And when it erupts, unfortunately, some people, there is a lot more domestic violence, both allegations and actual incidences happening. And there's a lot of the kids are getting impacted. People are now becoming homeless. We've had a person who was living in a shelter for 3 months during COVID because she had nowhere to go. And she couldn't live with the husband's family in the house that they were living at. So we've had our fair share of incidences due to COVID, and like Thomas said, things are starting. We're starting. I was cautioning. We're starting to get back together. But now with the new lockdown coming, I don't know what's there for Monday.
It's unpredictable. That's
It is
true.
Well, we are living in 2020, and it's a phenomenon that we never thought of going to go through, and like there are a lot of life losses to this, right, this year, with this COVID. So, but thank you guys for sharing those, because I think it's very important for the viewers to know that with that being said, real estate also, plays a big part in that, right? When, like I said, I've actually gone through 2 or 3 right now, and transactions that we just did. And honestly, on a normal cases, I don't think both of the cases, they would have survived, in my opinion, to be honest with you. Now, Samuel Vino. So we've known each other for a long time, and just want to know, in your professions, I know you specialize in catastrophic cases and what have you. How are things in your side of the world?
It's virtually, I would say, the same. There are new challenges, and some of those challenges involve obviously proceeding virtually via Zoom for various hearings, motions, things like that. Also similar to V2 and Thomas, we've had that sort of domino effect where court was shut down for a period of time, and so trial sittings that would have pushed claims along, tort claims in particular, have been ported over to this season, and then it's just virtually, it keeps going circular. And we don't know necessarily when our trials are going to occur. So sometimes we'll be told 3 weeks beforehand, which is a very little amount of time to prepare.
For you to do your research and what have you, prepare for the case, I assume, right?
Yes.
Okay. I know, like, with a lot of, and this is for you actually, a lot of the consumers are driving a lot less because they're working from home, what have you, virtually these days. And I think, have you guys seen perhaps in your sort of industry, cases are perhaps a lot less catastrophic cases coming along?
That's sort of, it's yet to be determined, I think. I think there's obviously less cars on the road, so there's less accidents.
Yes.
So I think it's really about separating yourself from everybody else out there with these catastrophic claims. For the more severe injuries, how far are you willing to go for the client?
But you guys are not only just dealing with the car accident, though. Like you have.
We deal with slip and fall, civil assault, civil abuse, sometimes even in a school setting per se.
Oh wow! Okay, that's amazing. So, with that being said, this is open dialogues more so. Have you guys seen from your side at this point where the real estate trending? As you guys know, it's probably pretty crazy, and then I don't know what else to say even. We thought that spring that we kind of lost, real estate, and everybody just locked down for 3 months. But the surge that we just got, like for the last 6 months, it's unbelievable. And from our perspective, realtors' perspective, is that, and it's going back to again, no one signed up to be at home 24/7. And again, I say it in a very polite way, that's right. But it's just that if you got 2 kids and you only got 900 square footage, it's impossible to actually even have the kids to entertain at home, let alone you work from home, right? And a couple. So what we're seeing is a lot of people are just like, really, you know what? I want to sell my condo, whatever it is, and I want to bounce to somewhere where I can actually have a lot more square footage. Are you guys seeing those like sort of conversation happening in
Yeah,
your?
we're having a lot. Like, so we have a large real estate practice too, and what we see is the migration to the suburbs, like places where traditionally you get bigger homes for less money. We have a lot in Durham region is really popping right now. We have people leaving condos, going into much bigger homes because now they're saying, before we didn't need to work from home at all, and now most houses come with a place with one home office. Now we need 2 home offices, and some employers are asking that you need to have a lock on your door. It's got to be a closed area. So the requirements,
security, I
a
guess.
lot of security. They're coming in and doing their own IT work into it. So the demand for the suburban home has increased.
It's tremendously.
It's tremendously, and going into November and December, this is unprecedented, the volume.
Yeah.
And with the rates like they are, the volume, it's amazing.
You really touched on a key point though. A lot of so I will say like our team, dedicated realtors, we do entire GTA. But 4 of us are from Durham region, right? We have 2 in North York and 2 in Markham. So like we have seen the surge. It's going all the way to like Tottenham. We're talking about Barrie. We're talking about like Belleville, like 2 hours ride from here. It's just like people are just like, okay, you know what? I can work from home. I'm just gonna get out to the city, right? So we saw that also, city like Toronto, the real estate actually has, in a sense, is bit of balance, but outskirt it's just crazy bidding, and especially in Durham region, affordability is there, that's right. So anyway, that's kind of real estate. So Thomas, I do have a question for you.
But before we move on, I want to sort of elaborate on certain real estate issues and COVID.
Sure.
And family law, the intersection of these 3 separate issues, because you bring a very interesting point. And the first point that you brought up was, well, what happens when you have, let's assume for a second that these people are separated, okay, and you have the kids living with one of the parents at a smaller house, okay. Now, there was a recent urgent decision that came out, I think a couple of months ago. It involved a very similar sort of fact pattern that you sort of raised earlier, and you have a very restricted size of the house, and you have a bunch of people living there. In this particular case, we had a matrimonial home. It's actually very big. Okay, mom lived in the matrimonial home. Dad lived in a very tiny apartment with the children. Okay, the first 2 weeks of COVID, what happened? We had 3 children sleeping on the floor. You have a daughter. Okay, you have 2 boys, 1 dad, 1 daughter. Okay, this is a place that's less than 900 square feet, I think. What's going to happen? It's inconvenient. You have your kids going to school, you have your dad doing work at home, and then you have the mom, occupying the large house. What happened in that situation? Well, there's a thing in family law called exclusive possession of the matrimonial home. Okay, and one of the factors, or some of the factors that the court will consider, is the best interest of the children. In this situation, given the lockdown, it can't be said that the best interest for the children would be served by living in a very confined area.
Yeah.
So what happened in that court decision? The court actually made an order requiring the mother to move out of the big house. Kids and dad, go back to your house. Okay.
Wow.
So that's an interesting little tidbit of information. This is a decision that came out a few months ago, and I would say that it may be applicable to a lot of viewers out there.
Yeah, and this is actually just to make sure the viewers do know this. These are cases we go through the code of law. We don't just make a call, say, you know what, you're living in this little 400 square footage and now you have this tough situation. You gotta prove it, and again, go through the expert and get it done. Just don't assume it. Sorry, go ahead.
And the thing is, you don't want to go to court. The thing is, if parents can actually come to some sort of agreement, it's actually a lot better for the kids. Kids don't want parents who are actually fighting for these kind of things. Unfortunately, sometimes there may be domestic abuse issues. that V2 talked about earlier. And in these kind of situations, it may be necessary to actually go to court to get the judge to give you that order. The second thing that may be more direct to some of your viewers is, well, I have I'm not worried about my home. My home outside of the GTA is actually increasing in value. There's demand for it. But then I have another sort of investment property, or I have a condo downtown. And as you're all aware, we have these recent Toronto, I think it was, I saw a Financial Post article earlier talking about the decline in real estate prices in downtown Toronto. Because what's happening is that rents are lower, okay? People don't want to live in these condos anymore. They want to move out, right?
And there are facts though. The facts is that we don't have the foreigners coming in. We don't have the tourism. So we're completely shut down.
Yeah.
We don't have the international students coming in.
Yes.
So we're looking at about, that 200,000 to 300,000 people, or even 1 million travel. Tourism is completely shut down. And so Airbnb, that we normally have about thousands of Airbnb units, now they are going on a normal lease sort of.
Absolutely.
So that kind of brought up that volume, the inventory, like you mentioned. $2,100 for one bedroom without a parking downtown Toronto now is going for $1,500. Can you believe that?
It's a stark contrast from just 9 months ago. 9 months ago, you have the money, you're fighting for a condo. Now, it's a little bit different, right? So what about those people who actually own a condominium downtown and they separated before COVID? Okay, so we know when you get divorced, if you're a married spouse, you get divorced. There are certain provisions in the Family Law Act that provides for how your property is divided. It's called an equalization of net family property. Each spouse has their own net family property, and usually it's the spouse who has more that transfers half the difference to the spouse who has less. Now, what happens if you're the owner of a condo, and the value, let's pray to God it doesn't happen, but let's say it tanks. Okay, your net family property is $100. Your condominium has now tanked, it's worth $10. But your net family, your equalization is based upon the higher net family property. What happens? Well, what's going to happen? I mean, you don't want to pay more than what you're actually worth. The Family Law Act has a mechanism where if it's unconscionable, right, to pay that higher net family property as a result of a tanking in the property value, the court can actually adjust that that equalization payment in order to balance out the result for both spouses. So for the viewers out there who actually have a condominium downtown and you separate it prior to any decreases in value in your condominium, there may be ways for you to actually reduce your equalization payment to your ex-spouse.
That is a great point. And I think our viewers, probably a lot of us don't know. I don't even know myself. So thank you for enlightening us on this. I mean, you did say that you have a third point that you want to point out. Was there another one or no?
With respect to the actual, with respect to property itself, I believe those are the only points that I want to mention, but I'll think harder.
Okay.
But if I have an answer, I'll let you know. Okay?
Was there anything else you wanted to add, Viju, from your side?
No, I think the intersection of COVID, real estate, and family law has really converged as a result of what's happening, and it's constantly morphing. What we do say is, if you do have a family law issue, reach out to your lawyer. If you have a real estate type of question, reach out to your agent, and we're always there to help. So, if you have anything, let us know.
All right. So I'm going to ask a question to Samuel Vino, and this is more so. So you deal with the catastrophic stuff, but what do you suggest? What do you not advise, but more so recommend people who are driving big or small vehicles or whatever else, insurance-wise, to protect themselves? Like what sort of coverage they should have to make sure that they have enough to if for God something more to happen, they're leaving enough for their loved ones.
I think the important thing is to make sure what your policy limits are. Make sure it's over and above what's needed, $1 million and above. I think the other thing is opting into very, very specific benefits such as attendant care, things like that. Because if you are disabled at home and you don't have that benefit and you don't have a spouse or a child who's willing to take care of you 24/7, then you're in trouble. And so those are things to look at. Evaluate the policy, evaluate the benefits.
Okay. These are very good points. And viewers out there, please check and go review your policies with your insurance advisor, whoever it is that you're dealing with. It's important to know what you covered and what you're not covered, and maybe always ask that question: is there something else that I should be amending to this? It's important to know, because I recently did mine as well. Right now, it's very hard for us to, we don't know when we're going to go through a divorce or separation. Things just happen in nature, right? And a lot of people ask, how can I be planned for that? Is there such thing?
Yeah. It depends on which stage of the process you're at. I think if you're pre-marriage, like we've recently seen this new phenomenon in the last couple of years, where younger individuals who already have investment properties or assets, what they're doing is coming in with prenups and protecting those properties. Or we've had a lot of clients who are holding properties in title for their parents because their parents didn't qualify, so they want to make sure they're protected. So they're coming into getting into marriage contracts and getting into domestic contracts. So you have an expectation of what your pre-marriage assets are, how that's going to be treated in the event of a separation, and sometimes even to the extent of how people's businesses are, because individuals with higher net worth businesses and stuff want to protect the business itself. So yeah, we've seen a lot of that happen.
That's a very good point. Prenup, the subject of prenup, and just even thinking about it, gets very emotional when you're in a relationship, And are there any sort of suggestions, perhaps, or some sort of tips that you guys can provide, like how to even have that conversation with that person that you're gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna get married to you"? You know what I mean? I'm sorry, because I'm telling you, it's not funny, but I'm just saying it is. It gets to a point where it's right.
Well, it's not very romantic to say, honey, I love you, but I want you to sign this contract so you don't take all my stuff. But I think that people who do get married, and if they're both coming from a very rational standpoint, and if you look at the facts and statistics, listen, we're in a situation where almost half, or maybe even more now, okay, but at the last I checked, it was just under half, of all marriages end in divorce, unfortunately, right? And I think it would be more prudent than not to actually enter into these kind of agreements. Okay. Now, with marriages less than 5 years, again, the law does provide certain recourses for you to again adjust any amounts of equalization payment to make it more fair for short marriages. But it's not a pleasant conversation. It's not a romantic conversation. But for rational individuals who acknowledge the risks, which is a reality. It might be more prudent to actually have that unpleasant conversation, get it over with, everything's on the table, okay, and just go on with the marriage.
I actually tell my clients, I'm like, you should, get to a place where you guys are comfortable in the relationship, and then tell them, it's like, look, I'm coming into this with X, Y, and Z assets or X, Y, and Z debt. And then you also have the conversation. You're coming into this, and you got to put it on the table, like it depends on what you're really holding for. Like if you're holding this, in trust really for your parents, to say, look, I have this property. It's really my parents. They're making all mortgage payments. I just went on title for it. And I think the more you open up into that, it's not a one-day conversation.
Of course.
And I think dinner might be short that day. But I think over time, the other side will see where you're coming from. Or you have to see where the other side's coming from, if they're coming from the other side too, right? So I think there is, if you're getting to the point of marriage, and in today's world where like everyone is a lot more independent than they were 20, 30 years ago, you need to have this conversation.
And it's very important. I just, actually 5 years ago when I was working for CIBC as an advisor, I remember a couple, and they're from Finland, and the husband passed away. She had no clue what even a bank card. So that you're talking about the independency. So that's right there. It's like, so it's very viewers out there, like, I know that you love your husband. I know you love your significant others. It's important in today's world that you actually take some sort of control and to make sure that you are, fully sort of protected in a way. Whether it's just your bank accounts, your credit, credit history, everything else in general, like we talked about the auto insurance, the home insurance, and what have you, right? So now I just have, perhaps this is a question that comes all the time from my clients. Matrimonial house, if I'm married and I don't know the difference, I'm just going to assume I don't know the difference, and I just would like you guys to perhaps shed some lights here. Matrimonial house versus I'm a common law, do I still get entitled for the same matrimonial house?
Well, let's talk about that. So matrimonial home is a concept that is applicable to married spouses. Okay, if you're married, all right, then the Family Law Act has certain provisions. Okay, for not only the division of the matrimonial home, but for certain rights called possessory rights to the matrimonial home, and these are only available to spouses who are actually married. All right?
Legally married.
Legally married. So let's talk about the home now. You know, you're a real estate guy. You know people who buy the house. They take the house in their own name only. The title is only under there's a sole title holder, or it can be a joint situation. Now, gotta be very careful with a joint title holder, with a joint tenant. Okay.
Yeah. Joint tenant.
Because the Family Law Act actually says that for married couples, if you put somebody as a joint tenant in the property, okay, whether or not they paid a single dollar, that's a gift. You just gave half of the interest of that property to that spouse. So when you're talking about division of property, not only does the calculation of your property stop at the date of separation, but now she's half a beneficial owner of that house. Any post-separation increases in property value or rental income, she has the right to that as well.
What if the percentage of that is 99 and 1?
If you're going into tenants and
I'm sorry, I'm
commons-
just
I think
putting it out there.
it was well, okay. If 99 and 1, you have 1% interest. Let's say a party, but the party can make now a claim for their part and out of the 99, and make it a very very messy situation.
Very messy.
And so I'm actually going through this with a client, not married, common, long term.
Yeah.
Partner passes away. Things houses that there's no there's no life insurance. All the creditors are coming after, and she has no right. It took us almost like a long time for us to explain the difference, because you would think in today's world, you know, common law marriage, traditional marriage, no big difference. There is a world of a difference, and you really need to make that distinction. If you're going to get married because or have a will, because it makes a world of a difference. And the cost significance, yes, the courts allow you to say, make this claim and we'll try to treat you as equal. But it's going to cost you so much to make that claim and to win on that claim, especially if other people are contesting it, that, you know, a simple will or getting married is almost the best advice we can get.
Or as Vitu mentioned earlier, prenuptial agreements. We don't call it prenuptial here in Canada. It's a marriage contract. But again, you know, that's the smarter way. Save yourself a headache 10 years down the road, right? Do it early, nip it at the butt. Okay. But the second part of your question is, what's the difference between that and common law couples? Well, common law couples, the law of property applies. Okay, so it's not the Family Law Act. It's the law of property. Meaning what? The house is worth $10. I put 5. You put 5. We both have beneficial interest. Let's say we both put $5, but it's only taken in one person's name. Resulting trust applies to revert half of that interest back to the person who's not entitled. Okay? But what about the last situation? Common law spouse, 25-year common law marriage. Okay, 25-year, no, sorry, not marriage. 25-year common law relationship. You have kids, and it's common law. You're not married, but the girlfriend stays at home for 25 years, raising kids, gave up her entire life, gave up her career, okay, for 25 years to raise these kids. And everything is under the sole ownership of the husband, of the boyfriend. What happens then? Well, there's a powerful remedy in law called the joint family venture. It's based on this other legal principle called the constructive trust claim, okay, which can be as powerful as the property division provisions in the Family Law Act. So for those viewers who are not married, don't despair. If it's a long common law marriage and you've made significant sacrifices for the sake of the family, for the family unit, there might be claims for them available. And of course, litigation is very expensive. So the most rational way is just talk it out, negotiate. But obviously, people might not be on friendly terms. In which case, you might really need a lawyer. So those are main differences
Yeah.
between married and unmarried couples.
Great, thank you. Thank you, the viewers, for tuning in. And I think, were there any other questions you guys have from your side that you might want to ask the panel? No? Okay.
I just want to commend you on your podcast.
Oh,
and thank you for
yeah,
having us on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is really good.
No.
Oh, and by the way, last thing, for people out there who are going into this second wave, wash your hands, wear your masks, because you can actually get kicked out of your home for failing to do that if you present a danger to your kids, and if your spouse proves that you fail to follow these COVID procedures, you can actually stop access visits. So be very careful. It's not a joke, especially with seeing kids.
Wow, that's again, guys. This is very important. These are very good, thoughtful answers given and pointers to given to us. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we are going to be looking at our fourth podcast and sometimes coming soon. Thank you so much.